millennia, they have stood in the shadows of the ancient wild places. They've hunted in the rainforests of the Pacific Northwest, raised young in the Appalachian Mountains, and hid from the encroachment of mankind in Europe and in Asia. The wild world is disappearing, and with it, the tribes of animals and ancestors, seen only in fleeting glimpses and the scant evidence they leave behind. They are the wild men of the forests, the Yeti, the Ordenpendak, and known to us as Sasquatch. Sasquatch has been a character of First Nations myth and legend. Stories told around the campfire, images carved into totem poles, sensational and barely credible witness accounts, but also the subject of serious anthropology. One theory is that Sasquatch is a relic hominid, an odd survivor of a species of primate long thought to be extinct. Nearly 2 million years ago, a 10-foot-tall relative of the orangutan walked the forests of Asia. According to the fossil record, Gigantopithecus blacki went extinct over 100,000 years ago. But what if Gigantopithecus didn't disappear, but instead crossed from Asia to North America when the Bering Land Bridge connected the two continents nearly 20,000 years ago? Could this massive yet largely unknown primate ancestor be the origin of Sasquatch in North America? A relic hominid species of ape that is as secretive, elusive, mysterious, and rare now it perhaps was in those impossibly ancient forests of Asia.
I need to find out from you, how many of you, and you can be honest, we're all friends here, have actually seen the show Finding Bigfoot on Discovery Channel. Not a single thing. You got it. You know. What does that say about me? Well, you're a believer. Yeah. So let me tell you, if you've never seen that show, it's very structured. And in the middle of the show, they have a town meeting, and they bring people together. And they ask people if they've ever seen or had an encounter with Bigfoot. And amazingly, there's usually 30 people that raise their hand. And they come up and they tell their story, and they put a pin on the map, you know, where that's been. So let me ask you, it's okay. We are recording, but don't worry about it. We won't publish your name. Have any of you had, you don't have to tell your story, but raise your hand if you've had some sort of encounter with Sasquatch. Okay.
I most certainly did.
Would you like to come up and tell us?
I would.
It was a smell I noticed first. Like a skunk and wet dog and garbage, all rotten meat, all mixed up together. Made my eyes water and made me tickle in my throat. I sat up in my tent, and that is when the howls began. And I were camping in the foothills of Mount Adams, up in the Gifford Pit Show. This was late spring, it must have been 5 years ago now. We turned in around midnight. Our campsite was a few dozen feet from the banks of a nice trout stream. You could hear the water and the splash of the fish. Lying there in your sleeping bag, it's almost like white noise. Seemed to surround us. And in between the howls, there was this low, pulsing, grunting sound that I could feel in my chest, my stomach. I found out later it's called infrasound. Between the smell and the howls, I was frozen in place. I was so scared and a little bit sick. And I'm not a religious man, but I might have said a prayer that night. Finally, the howling stopped. How long did it go on? Seconds? Minutes? I don't know, but it stopped. That smell went away too, or at least got a little less strong. I thought I heard something big splashing in the water. Then, I did something stupid. I've often wondered why I did it. I opened up the tent, and I looked outside. I forgot to say there was a full moon that night and lots of stars, not many clouds, and so I could see clearly whatever it was that stood in the stream. It was massive, at least 8 or maybe 9 feet tall. That's just a guess, but a pretty good one. Its shoulders were massive, and its neck was a thick bundle of fat and muscle. It was covered with long, brown, black hair, shiny in the moonlight. It stood with its back to me, and I could hear it breathing, slow and steady. It was holding a half-eaten trout. too, but it looked like a sardine in its hands. And that is when I did another stupid thing. I called to my buddy Paul in the other tent. Paul, I tried to whisper, you gotta see this. And that is when the thing turned and looked at me. It was surprised. I could see it in its eyes, but it wasn't hostile. We looked at each other for a good 30 seconds. Me motionless with fear, and this massive creature trying to decide what exactly I was, and where I had come from, and what it was gonna do to me. And that's when it dropped the fish, raised its head, and howled again. I had to close my eyes and cover my ears. When I looked again, all I saw was a massive form disappearing into the forest on all fours. Paul came out of his tent and asked me what the hell was going on. I said, I just seen something. I can't really explain it. I told him what I saw. You saw a bear, right? That's all it was. Go back to sleep. Now I've seen bears. Big ones too. And that was no bear. That was a Sasquatch. following story comes from the Yokut Indians in California. All the birds and the animals of the mountains went to Eagle, chief of the animals, who asked each animal how they wanted people to be. Each animal took a turn and said what they had to say. Fish said, "People should know how to swim like me, so let them be able to hold their breath and swim very deep." Hummingbird said, "People should be fast like me, so let them have good feet and endurance." Eagle said, "People should be wise, wiser than me, so people will help animals and take care of the earth." Turtle said, "People should be able to protect themselves like me, so let's give them courage and strength." Lizard said, "People should have fingers like me, so that people can make baskets and bows and arrows." Owl said, "People should be good hunters like me, so give them knowledge and cunning." Condor said, "People should be different from us, so give them hair and not feathers of fur to keep them warm." Then Coyote said, "People should be just like me, because I am smart and tricky, so have them walk on all fours." Hairy Man, who had not said anything yet, shook his head and said, "No, people should walk on two legs, like me." All the other animals agreed with Hairy Man, and Coyote became very angry. He challenged Hairy Man to a race, and they agreed whoever won could decide how people should walk. They gathered at the waterfall to begin the race. Coyote started and took a shortcut. Hairy Man was wiser than Coyote and knew that Coyote would cheat to win, and people would have to walk on all fours. So Hairy Man stayed behind and helped Eagle, Condor, and the others to make people. They went back to the rock and drew people on two legs on the ground. The animals breathed on them and people came out of the ground. Hairy Man was very pleased and went to people. But when they saw Hairy Man, they were scared and ran away. That made Hairy Man sad. All the other animals drew their pictures on the rock so people would remember them. Hairy Man was sad because people were afraid of him, so he drew himself sad. And that is why Hairy Man's picture is crying to this day. exist. If Sasquatch does not exist, who then is the hairy man of the First Nation stories, whose face is carved into the stones and totems? If Sasquatch is not real, who has left countless immense tracks in the wilderness, has broken branches, has made nests? Whose voice can be heard calling in the night, a sound not made by wolf, coyote, dog, or bird? Sasquatch is not real, then who strides in the Bluff Creek in the Patterson-Gilden film, muscles flexing beneath fur as she turns and peers with alarm at the intruders in her wilderness? Wild places disappear, swallowed by man's never-ending encroachment, plowed, cut, burned, poisoned. The deep forests and their mysteries are fading into myth, their tribes of animals silenced. Sasquatch exists, we need her to be real. To remind us of the time before modern man enslaved the natural world. Of the wild, to be our link to our ancient, primordial past. When we danced with the salmon and howled at the moon,